And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection. I'm your host, Robert Pictou. Our show today comes to you from the traditional and unceded territory of the Tsimshian people. The Nisga'a refer to their oral culture and traditional laws as Ayak. This also includes their belief system, traditional histories, identity, art, and music. The Nisga'a strive to protect the Ayak and pass it along to younger generations. We begin today's Open Connection with an elders' talk during Prince Rupert's Nation of Nations Women's Gathering.
The ladies don't know this, but your daughters have been kind enough to give us some pictures of you growing up. And so we're very thankful. We'll first start with Lavinia's family.
On the left is my mom, Maggie, and Susan. I think that's me, the one beside her. Audrey Barton, I think, yeah. And the last one is, I can't place her. And the two boys, Richard, Audrey's brother, and my brother. We're very young.
So I was speaking of influences in our lives and growing forward together. Tell me about your mom. What kind of a woman was she, and what kind of influence did she have on your life?
My mom, they were very, very traditional, and I worked right beside her growing up. And I never went to residential school, and I just stood beside her. Everything she did, the harvesting the food, and we did a lot of things together, and she was a great cook. So I learned how to cook our traditional food from her, and she taught me a lot. They did a lot off the land, and I remember when we used to harvest olekins, we had to prepare to do the olekins ahead of time, wash the sticks and everything, and it was amazing because they taught us exactly what to do to respect the whatever you're harvesting. Never waste nothing. We did 500 sticks, and we had to count like that, and they were really, really thorough about doing the olekin. Everything's in seasons, like first it was the olekin, and then sea lion. It's another thing that we had to do. I did that with her, and when she cooks, she always has her own favorite pot, a big pot. So I stand beside her and watch every step and everything she did, and even with preserving her food. I really watched her. She was a great woman. She was born in Fishery Bay. That's where my mom was born, and that's where she was adopted. Fishery Bay used to be a big, big place, and they did a legal adoption. This lady that took her in, her name is Selena, I think. And she was just about a week old or something like that. So that's how we became eagles, because she's adopted. And they never told us that, she didn't tell me that she had sisters. And yet I worked beside her all the time, and never mentioned once that he had sisters and brothers. But years down the line, we started to know them when we were older. In fact, growing up, we didn't even know what 10 cents, 5 cents was. We help after we do all the oligans, then we go and help our auntie to do theirs.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thanks for staying with us. Parents have an equal role as teachers in shaping the future of children. Home is the first school a child attends, but it differs from an actual one in many aspects. Knowing or unknowingly, we, parents, take up the role of teacher early on in the lives of our children, guiding them and protecting them every step of the way. Let us return the conversation as Lavinia shares memories of her mother.
On the left is my mother, Martha, and she was a great influence on my life. When we were small, I was born in Kirunga, and when we were small, she had like a farm. We had big property, and she had a farm there. She grew potatoes and carrots and everything, all the vegetables. And she was really an entrepreneur. She went to Prince Rupert, and Salem had a store. It's next door to where the bargain shop is. And his store was about half the size of this room here. And she made a deal with him. She'd send on the train, she'd send down all the vegetables, and because in them days they used telegraphs, so she'd telegraph them that it was coming down. And she also had a list of what she wanted for the winter. And he was very honest. That's Jack Masalem, the mayor we had here years ago. That was his dad. And how honest he was. There was always an envelope inside the produce with money in it. So, you know, he never ripped her off at all. And there was 13 of us born in the family, but the oldest one just lived a week and passed away. And then my older brothers, they went to Edmonton for the residential school there. And my older sister went to Edmonton, and then her and one of my brothers went to Port Alberni after. And when I was 10, I went on the steamer. They used to have steamships then. And it took us 3 days to get to Nanaimo and then get off there, and then they'd bus us to the Alberni Residential School. It was the Alberni Indian Residential School. And so she used to have horses too, so she had 2 horses and grew hay on the rest of the field. And when they finished baling up the hay, she took her pitchfork and she stuck it in the hay and said, "I'm not going to do this anymore." So that's when she moved down to the cannery. She retired when she was 70, and the men went to Kirunga, the fishermen, and they demanded her to come down because she was such a good net mender. And So she did that for 2 more years, and then she said, no, I'm not coming down anymore. So she was 72 when she finally retired. And she also taught me, told me stories and everything about our family and the clan we were from, and always warned me about who to look out for, because if she's not around, then she said they'll take your names. So she told me all the names that we had. And Max and I were, my late husband, we were married I think about 2 years, and then he built me a smokehouse on the other side of the tracks in Cashier Cannery, because we lived in Rupert for 1 year in an apartment, and then we moved out to the cannery because he started fishing for them. And he built me a smokehouse on the other side of the tracks because it was dry there. And my mom taught me how to smoke our salmon. And then because we had the smokehouse and he'd go and he'd get olicans, he used to go shrimping, so he had a shrimp net, and that worked perfectly for getting olicans. We gave olicans to everybody at the cannery. I think there was about 12 families that lived there all year round.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thanks for staying with us. Parents have an equal role as teachers in shaping the future of children. Home is the first school a child attends, but it differs from an actual one in many aspects. Knowing or unknowingly, we, parents, take up the role of teacher early on in the lives of our children, guiding them and protecting them every step of the way. Let us return the conversation as Lavenia shares memories of her mother.
But this is a photo of in King Colith. So for those that are not from the area, the community we've come from is up the coast about 60 miles. And in the day, you could not drive into the community. You can only take a boat or a float plane. So this picture here is the very first vehicle that's come to the community, and it arrived I must have been 5 years old, and I don't remember ever seeing a vehicle before. And so when this vehicle showed up on the barge and they drove it through the community, every kid, of course, in the community jumped on the back of that vehicle or that truck and would ride around in the community. But anyways, this picture, this truck was used, on May 24th, they'd have the May Queen. And the Queen got the privilege of sitting in the back of the truck, and they would drive that person around the community. Anyways, so I saw that photo and I thought, I wasn't sure if you would remember. I mean, we're talking about growing forward or moving forward and together. Well, you talk about change. Well, that was change for the community back then.
I was a fisherman too. I went fishing with my husband. I was trying to take a picture, and he said, "What are you doing trying to take a picture?" He said, "Give me a hand here. This is going to be a big halibut." And I looked and I said, "Oh my God." I said, "Gee, that's a big one." And he told me he said, "We won't be able to pull it in ourselves." He said, "We need our winds." So I was having a hard time trying to get the winds going. So I threw the rope to him, and that's how we got that big halibut in. In matter of fact, we had 2 of them, big halibut. We had a hard time, but it was nice. We were commercial fishing, so we made money that day. And that's, I fished with him for a long time after I retired, working in a cannery.
I remember being a very small, well, probably 5 or 6 years old, and this is a picture of Cashier Cannery. And back in the day, there were many of these fishing canneries along the Skeena River. And my parents moved to this. So you'd go there like in May or June, and you would live there until September rolled around. But I remember going on the right side there's a dark building there. That's the store. And I remember standing outside there looking in this little cutout window, ordering ice cream. And the person that helped me was Cam.
I worked in the cannery for a few years, and then when my daughter Sabrina was born in 1958, I decided to quit working in the cannery, and I asked if I could work in the store. So that's what I did for many years. And then when our first aid man was quite elderly and he had thick glasses, so I did some first aiding with him without taking up first aid yet, but I could see better than he did. And yeah, so for the last 4 years that I was there, and I left in 1972. I was managing it for 5 years, and I used to take my daughter Sabrina out, and she was just small. And one time my tire went flat just past Sunnyside, and when we seen a car coming, I put my hand out, and Jeannie, Max's niece, was up, and she had her thumb out, and little Beanie was there, and she had her thumb out. So that was really funny. I told her to get back out of the way and not to try.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
In 1889, Alfred Green put a $16 deposit on a property along the Skeena Slough to participate in the salmon boom of the late 1800s. Green sold it to the Cassiar Packing Company in 1903, and Cassiar was in business, fully operational in over 80 years and holding the record as the longest consecutively operating cannery in the West Coast. In this final segment of Open Connection, our panel recalls cannery life.
So this is a picture of Cassiar as well. And, in the day, people went to work when the horn would go. So there was this loud horn that would go in the morning at 8 o'clock, and everybody would come out and go to work, and then the horn would go at 10 o'clock and at noon and so on like that. And so these were the days that coming out of the communities and living in the canneries was a change. And it was a change because for most of the First Nation people who were living in those communities, coming out to work in the cannery, you now were part of the economy. You were now making money, and whether they were fishing or working in a fish plant, they were now making money. And so there was integration. The First Nations, they would have on one side of the cannery, they would have all the Gitxsan people, and then on the other side, they'd have all the Niska people, and then somewhere in the middle, they'd have the whites, the Japanese, the Chinese bunkhouse, and so on. And everyone was segregated. Everybody worked together, but nobody kind of lived together. That's how it was. And so when you look at the coastal First Nation people, they seem to be more integrated into society as opposed to being segregated. Because when I was living in Calgary, I really saw the divide between the First Nation people that lived in Alberta and how they lived away from the cities. And so it was a big change for me to see that.
In those days, too, the people from the Skeena River up country, and they traveled by train, and it was just a steam locomotive. And from Kirunga to Prince Rupert, it used to take us 4 hours on the train, because I would travel with my mom. My older brother was in Miller Bay, the TB hospital, and he took off a couple of times, and Mom didn't want to travel by herself, and I was only about 8, I guess, and she'd take me along with her. And that's how long it would take us to get to Rupert. So really slow travel.
So when you lived in a cannery, if you were working for the company, they give you a booklet like this, and this is how you bought your fuel and your groceries. You used the company's coupon book to buy the company's food, your net, the company's fuel. Everything went to the company. So you fished for the company, and you bought their food, you bought their fuel, and they made all the money. And when everything was all over, at the end of the year, they do a settlement, and the fishermen had very little because the company owned everything.
When my husband settled up at the office in the fall, and he didn't make that much money, and he brought the list down, and I told him, I said, you got charged double for this. About 3 items he got charged double, and I checked them off for him, and he went back to the office, and they reimbursed him the money, but they said, next year when you come to get settled, bring your wife.
This is a picture of Auntie Lavinia, her granddaughter Marlena, who was speaking up here today, and her daughter Meadow.
I know a lot of people, and I learned through them because I run a B&B in Kincolith, and I started that before the road opened, and that was a lot of work, but I managed to do it by myself, and it was nice, and I'm really happy today that I was able to see everyone. It's nice to get out of the community, and especially after all what we went through, there's so much happening, and it's just really, really hard to get out of Kincola sometimes. And then when I'm out, I'm glad I come out because I like meeting people. I meet my friends, and when I go to a grocery store and you hear a guy hollering, say, Lavinia, Lavinia, remember me? And it's one of my guests. And I'm happy that I'm here and to see all of you.
When you're in a corporate world, nobody makes a mistake. Nobody admits they made a mistake. There's no vulnerability. It's not there. But today, it's completely the opposite. It's real. And the people are real. And so for that, I really have enjoyed from what I heard, from what I saw, and whether you know Lisa or not, you've created something that is great. It is a place, and I wish they would have a place like this for men.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection one's mind and heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.